Good evening, everybody. And how are we all doing today? It is the Sunday, the 27th of August, 2023. Sun is shining. It's been a lovely, lovely day, lovely week. In fact, we're here for another Sunday night live stream. Now, the topic up for discussion is one that was, I think it was Turbo Stream who suggested this topic is when do you start planning your garden or your allotment for 2024? We'll get into that in just a moment, but first of all, let's see if anybody is out there. And first of all, I can see Turbo Streamers out there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Adrian is out there saying hello. Good evening to you. We've got Digwell Green Fingers also out there saying good evening, Adrian, and anyone else after. Good evening to you. Ballycillian Allotment Man is out there. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Finny SBB is out there. Hello, everyone. Hello to you. Stuart Jackson is joining us this evening. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. I am back after missing last week's live. Hope you are well, my friend. Lovely to see you. Rebecca Hawkins is out there saying good evening. Good evening to you. We've got Kate Spratt out there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Hannah Jones is there saying evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is also there. Evening, everyone. Strange weather here today. Hope you've all had a great week. Indeed, I hope you have had a great week as well. We have got Gary. He's saying hello, everyone. Good evening to you. We have also got, what else have we got? Anybody else? Anybody else? Margaret Peacock is out there saying hello. Good evening to you. Scott Ambler is out there saying good evening all. Good evening to you. Graham Arnold is out there saying evening all. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson says I've started planning my garden for next year as it's all changed. My veg patch will become my fruit bed. Getting straight in there with this conversation, aren't we? So, well, without much ado, let's get into it then, shall we? So, when do you generally start planning your 2024 or your following year plans for your garden or your allotment? I'll be completely honest with you, I've started planning already, and I start planning quite a while back. I almost start planning years ago because of a routine I have. I'm always looking ahead, and I believe gardening is always about looking ahead anyway. So I'm always thinking, right, next year that's going to be this. So between now and then, I need to do this, this, and this. One example would be where my potatoes are going to grow next year. That bed, or the beds that are where the potatoes are going to grow next year, this year has been for beans. So over winter, I'm going to be planting out or sowing loads of field beans for those beds. So that's I've already started making the plans as such. But over to you guys. Let us know when you start planning. Stuart Jackson saying, then my vegetable patch will be 3 new beds. That's in relation to the fact that his current vegetable patch will be his fruit bed, and then he's going to have 3 whole beds for his vegetable patch. I think we have got Stuart into this whole grow your own lifestyle. My dad has joined saying good evening to you. Hope you are well. So, yes, when do you start planning your vegetable for the next year? As I said, I'm always planning mine well in advance, but obviously there's only certain things that we can plan. Now, I'm gonna I think I said last week that I'm not going to be doing a live stream next Sunday, but what I've decided to do, I'm going to do a pre-recorded show, if I can get it all done in time, just going over some of the changes and showing you what I'm going to be changing throughout the winter months. I always feel winter is a good time to get a lot of the infrastructure jobs. When everything's a lot quieter, there's more time on our hands. Okay, it's a bit colder, but I feel it's good for the infrastructure jobs, such as building beds or building paths and what have you. So Turbo Stream says, I've already started by extending my strawberry bed this week. I took up a small grass path between a soft fruit and a thin strip of strawberries. There we go. So you have already started and you're expanding your strawberry bed. Excellent stuff. More strawberries are always very, very welcome. Digwell says, I plan the future sowings as soon as I lift something out of the ground. So you don't actually plan. I'm not. I'm not. I don't want to be negative or anything. I should say that, but I find that interesting that you started as soon as you lift something out of the ground. I try. It's not always easy. I try and do it before something comes out of the ground, so I know what I can sow in there in its place, or not necessarily sow it straight in. I might have them started at home in order to go straight in. Anna Jones says, have the beans in the builder's market started to sprout yet? Not as of yet, I'm afraid to say. Not yet. Hopefully this week it will. We'll keep a close eye. Stuart says, at school I've got 5 new raised beds for the children to build, plan, then growing from September. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Margaret says, Dad says, hello. Just as we tried to put you on the TV, it started to update. Damn, don't you hate it when things update just when you start to use them? Scott says, I start planning in November, December onwards. I find it keeps me going during the winter months and something to look forward to when I have the winter blues. Now, and I often think that the winter time is also a good time for planning. It's always dark and dingy in the winter, isn't it? And it is nice to sit down there with what seeds you've got, write down when you're going to sow them or work out when you're going to sow them. But I come back to what I said earlier. I feel the infrastructure jobs need to be done throughout the winter. Many people will leave, as I said, the building of beds until the spring. But I feel when the spring is such a busy time, if you've got them built before the spring, you can jump in and use those beds straight away. So that's my way of thinking about it. I don't know if anybody else thinks about it. Ballycillian says, I like to plan and prepare beds for the next season now, so that when the busy seed sowing and potting on season starts, all the beds are all prepared for various crops. Man after my own heart, just like I was saying, we're going to spend the winter preparing the beds, building the beds and preparing the beds, so that when spring comes, it's ready to go. Chili Cake, hello from the Chili. Sorry, haven't been around for a while. Life got busy, then we got COVID. Hope you are all okay now. Nice to see you, though, guys. Yeah. Hope you are well. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream, my main growing square will be divided or redivided into 3 strips rather than having odd shaped sections at present. These will then be subdivided into sections for different plants. Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, breaking down the beds, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Chili Kate also says, already planning the overwintered crops like garlic. Yeah, this is again where I always think trying to think a lot farther ahead pays off. Overwintered crops is a good example. So garlic will go in the end of September, in less than a month's time. Overwintered broad beans and peas will be going in during this time as well. Overwintered onions. So the beds that they need to go in, they need to be prepared now. They need to be ready so I can just pop those in as soon as the time is right, which is what I'm doing at the moment. We've got where my onions and garlic was growing, they are going to be the peas and the bean beds. So we're going to get the overwintering peas and the overwintering broad beans into those beds. And then where my cabbages and cauliflowers, the summer varieties, where they've already came out. That's going to be where my garlic and my overwintered onions is going to be growing. That's why I say I'm always trying to think further ahead so that I'm already planned. I've already read that one. Scott is there saying, agree. I plan during the summer for building jobs this year. I have had I have built a brick barbecue, mulching and fixing raised beds on my list already. Absolutely. Yeah, the infrastructure jobs, as I call them, the big building jobs, I feel just over the winter makes a lot of sense. Well, all this talking, it's been so warm today. I went on a nice walk earlier. All this talking, but I've got really dry mouth, and I've got tomorrow. I'm going to be even worse with the amount of things I've got to record in advance. What have we got here? Toby Stream says, hopefully the sections will be separated with very low edging made from the old raspberry canes, a bit like a hazel fence, but only a few high. Is that a few inches, a few centimeters? Let me know, buddy. But yeah, making a hazel out of old hazel. Also, you're going to take these raspberry canes, twist them into hoops, that type of thing, and then make hazel style hedging out of that. Is that what you're talking about? But I do like that idea. I do like that idea quite a bit, actually. Stuart says, I want the children to work out what they can grow from day one. I am hoping they will do the research, then ask me to get the seeds they need. That's a good way of doing about it, Stuart, actually. Go in and have a word with the children, tell them what let them decide, and you go from there. Good idea, buddy. Toby Stream, I was podding the dried field beans earlier, ready to sow in September. Yep, dried field beans will be going into empty beds. I mean, I always hate having empty beds anyway. This is again why I try and think ahead, because as Digwell said earlier, where he takes a crop out, he wants to put another plant in there, and that's very much what I like to think about as well. So if I might take out my cabbages, I want to follow that up with garlic, or if I cannot get any crops in there that are going to produce in time, then I want to fill it all up with green manures. I'm a big fan of green manures. Useful for making compost, useful for cleaning soil, useful for adding nutrients to soil, and also good for just creating a bit of a cover over the bed to protect it from the elements. Green manures, Phacelia, field beans, and red clover, some of my favourite. And Lisa from Not Just Green Fingers UK blog is saying, evening all, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Then we have got Amanda in the Facebook group saying, same for me. I'm trying to get everything set up ready to just water the polytunnel and knit round with a hoe a couple of times a week. So I'm ready for next season. And all I need to do over winter is to try and keep crops going. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think one of the plans that I'm trying to push for, and I'll try and push this every year, is that during the busier times, so the spring, the summer time, and I mean that not just busy with the allotment and the gardening, but also with work. I want to be able that I have a very or less maintenance to do on the allotment, which is another reason I like green manures or always growing something in the bed. So it acts as like a shelter, a cover, and reduces the amount of weeds. And the idea being, of course, come the springtime, we can just wander around. We can plant our plants out that need to go in. Might be tomatoes, might be cabbages, might be our potatoes. We can get them in the ground, planted, watered. Don't have to worry about them. All we then have to do, keep them well watered and weed free. The whole thing, sometimes adding a mulch, of course, I like adding mulches to a lot of things, but if we can reduce the amount of time weeding, then I'm all the more happier. So Turbo Stream was talking about these raspberry canes, turning them into the hedges. There will only be a few centimetre high with old bamboo canes cut to short lengths. Then the raspberry canes laid along the soil to make the edging, hopefully. Interesting idea. Please do send us a video and how it works out for you. I'll be interested to see just what goes on. Not Just Green Fingers said, sowed my winter salads today for my polytunnel. I've just ordered my overwintered garlic and onion sets as well. I think, I think this is exactly some of the points that I want to raise as well. Polytunnel or greenhouse for actually growing food during the winter. Winter salads is a great example. I love my salads. We try and grow quite a few of them. And we thoroughly enjoy our winter salads. And using the greenhouse, obviously, greenhouses do get quite packed throughout the winter. But we want to see we want to see food actually growing in them, making it a usable space. Same as the veggie pods, it makes it a usable space. Something I've got a lot of plants of this year that are going to go in soon, once once we have spaces, really, is the Swiss chard, as it's known as. These are the orange variety. I've got loads and loads of young plants of Swiss chard, and I'm going to get those into the ground at some point, in the empty spaces, so that if I don't eat them by spring, or they're still growing by spring, which they probably will be, I can just dig them up, give them to the chickens. It also helps give the chickens a bit of food during the winter time as well. The way I see it, anyway. Stuart Jackson says, if I use new compost in the beds at school, will we need to grow green manure, or would it be better just to start growing food, herbs, or flowers? Thanks. You don't need to use green manures at all. I just find it is a good way of trying to add nutrients to the soil if you have nothing else growing in there. So your fresh compost is going to be full of nutrients. But if you're going to be growing food, herbs, flowers, whatever you want to do in that bed, and that's ready to go in, no need for green manures in my eyes. As I said, I just use green manures more as when there's gaps and nothing available to grow. It also helps build our compost supplies up too. Toby Stream says, I've got the edging idea from a YouTube channel called Lovely Greens. Yes, I know, and she's in the Isle of Man. She did that a couple of years ago. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. So that's very, very interesting. And then we got, I think this could be Amanda in the Facebook group, but I could be wrong. I've just started helping on a half plot, which was neglected for years. So pretty much a blank canvas. Just cleared a quarter of it and started laying beds. Hoping to get some onions and cabbage in a couple of weeks. Big plan for next year is exhibition onions and giant veg. Good thinking, actually. I know, again, Digwell recently went to his local, done quite well there from what I saw, his local veg exhibition. Ours here in Littlehampton is on the 15th of September, and I'm hoping to go along. I've not got anything to show because I don't normally grow anything for show, but next year I'm thinking I might try and grow a few things for the show garden. I normally grow for food, as I call it. But I'm thinking next year we might be able to do something along those lines. I'm going to check it out this year and see what happens. Anyway, back to when do we start planning our 2024 garden or the following year's garden? Now, one of the reasons that I kind of know what I'm going to be growing where is because I follow a rotation pattern. Now, I know a lot of people will, or modern thinking will tell us a rotation pattern isn't necessary. It was done as a reason to try and stop pests building up, but if you do no dig, it doesn't necessarily need to happen. And I'm no scientist, so I'm not going to agree or disagree with that. The main reason I do follow a rotation pattern is so that I can organize where I have plants growing. As I said, where my cabbages and garlic were, the summer ones, once they're out, that can be then used for garlic and onions overwintered. So they come out, there's space, garlic and onions go in. Same with the peas, same with the potatoes. It's all about, for me, following this rotation plan so that I can work out or have the space to start planting out some of the things in there next. Turbo Stream says another change for next year is to use soil-based compost to start and grow on my seeds. Had major problems with the normal multi-purpose compost this year. Interesting, very interesting indeed. I know quite a few people have had trouble with seeds this year, and I've had trouble with beans and lettuce specifically, but I don't know if it's due to the seeds, due to the compost, or what. I tend to use a seed compost as opposed to a multi-purpose, which is normally good enough, and I've still got bags of it. But interesting. What type of soil-based compost, or where are you going to get your soil-based compost from? Um, the usual suppliers are closing down gradually, aren't they? Terry Stream says, I bought some bags of John Innes seed and number 2 this week. Oh, there you go. So where did you get those from? So the seed compost. I mean, I've brought 5 bags, I think it was, of seed compost a few years ago. I still have quite a bit of it left. Probably 2 bags still left, and I use seed compost quite a bit because I prefer to use it. Digwell says the problem with rotation is that you can inadvertently move disease from one bed to another, e.g., from saved onion, garlic, shallots. Absolutely, you are right there. Yes, you are completely right there. And I hadn't quite thought of that until you said it. However, I do save garlic and I do save shallots. So I can, completely see what you're saying there, Digwell, about that. And I hadn't quite thought of that. Luckily, all I would say there is if my well, not so much my onions because I tend to buy those in, but if my garlic or shallots are showing signs of disease, then I probably wouldn't use those in the following year. Stuart Jackson says, after this year with peat-free compost, I will be using molehill soil mixed with peat-free compost. This way, I'm hoping it will give better results. I know a lot of people have been having trouble with peat-free compost this year, haven't they? It hasn't been the best quality. I'm hoping it's going to get better as time goes by. But who knows? Who knows? We could be wrong on that. Bethan's Kitchen and Garden has joined. Evening all. Good evening to you, Bethan. Hope you are well. Looking forward to seeing you next Saturday. Turbo Stream says it's a nightmare trying to keep things alive as it dries out too quickly. This is talking about the compost. I brought it from a small family nursery in Liddell Ash, just off the junction 4 of the M5. Yeah, composts this year have been pretty tricky, it has to be said. Highgrave Gas says, I've just bought a big bulk bag of soil and manure mixed from Madinley Mulch near Cambridge. Interesting, very interesting. I've been looking at bulk bags of compost, to be honest with you, because I'm thinking I might have to buy some in order to try and get everything that I want done ready to go. How much is a big bulk bag of compost these days? Because I'm looking around and it's quite a lot of money for our local ones. Stuart Jackson says, sorry, I meant molehill, as we have loads on the school fields. I think I figured it out. Bethan says, looking forward to it. Lovely. And Digwell says, after some shocking results with peat-free compost in a container-grown veg this year, I'm stockpiling Mother Earth peat-based as and when I can afford it. Is the Mother Earth one of the most popular ones this year? Has that been one of the ones with best results? I'm going to be making a video tomorrow about the potatoes grown in different composts, so it'll be interesting to see just what works out best there. Toby Stream says, I wonder if the bags of topsoil would be okay for sowing and pricking out seeds. I will sieve some of my leaf mold and do a mix with a John Innes seed compost. I don't know about topsoil. Don't know about I mean, I just use seed compost for my seeds, and that's been done. That does it. That's all I use. Add a bit of perlite just to act as a bit of a sponge, and that's it really. Scott says, I always grow a new variety alongside my current favourite, and after doing a taste test, my plans for next year will change. Good point, actually. Actually, that is a very good point. We spoke about seeds that we're going to be growing next year last week, but I mean, I think everything even tastes and certain foods change each year anyway that we grow. But I can think for one example for me, for the last few years, I've not had very much success growing Maris Piper potatoes. I always want to grow them because they're known to be some of the best for chips. But in hindsight, I'm thinking to myself, no, we don't need to grow them anymore. They don't do well. I'm just wasting my time. So they may not be on my list of potatoes for next year. Instead, I'll find another main crop. I'm not sure what it's going to be just yet, but I will find another main crop that might do better instead. Uh, if it's no good, you can maddenly use it as a mulch. Digger also says, not used Mother Earth this year as I wanted to go peat free, but I've used it for 4 years before. Always very good results. Is Mother Earth not peat free then? How are they getting away with it if it's not peat free? And again, I know a lot of people have struggled with peat free compost this year. Um, I I've had pretty good results, so I'm not in that band, but I know uh, certain people have found some absolutely awful stuff in their compost mixes. So yeah, I'm with you. With you. Turbo Stream says, my friend who died always produced fantastic seedlings that always did well. I need a medium to ask him what his secret was. LOL. It could be a number of reasons. Could be a number of reasons. Bethan says, I find soaking seedlings from the bottom works well with peat free as it forms a dry crust on top, which can be deceiving. But if they absorb from the bottom, at least the roots will always be wet. That's interesting. That is very interesting. I can see why that might happen. Especially if it's got a bit of clay in there. Yeah, it could definitely happen. So yeah, interesting indeed. High grade gas, £90 for cubic meter bag, about a ton, I think. Worked out it was cheaper than buying smaller bags of compost. Yeah, this is where I've been looking a lot into, slightly off topic this. Well, it's not actually, because it's about planning for next year. I have been looking into what compost I want to buy next year. Um, Obviously the potato test that I'll uncover tomorrow will tell me a lot. One of the things that I found is that the super soil compost that I buy from the range, 4 bags, they're 40-litre bags, cost about a tenner for 4 bags, which is pretty good, I think. But what I was trying to work out whether or not to buy a cubic meter bag and try and keep that for next year for our compost instead, and if that's going to work out a lot cheaper. It all depends on how many litres you get. A cubic meter for £90, it's about the same price as what we pay down here. So how many litres are in a cubic meter? I cannot work that out at the moment. We'll work that out in a minute. Peat free does not come into December 2024. No, but a lot of them are getting ready for it, aren't they? We're trying to get rid of the old stock and move to the peat free stock. Scott says, Maddenly Mulch is down the road for me and was looking at their mulches, and they do a Fenland soil and horse manure mix. Thinking about getting it. Excellent. I'm definitely in this for bulk compost over this winter, getting lots of that. Andrew Norris has joined. Evening all, just back from the garden. Harvested the last of the Croatian tomatoes, French beans, and Swiss chard. I'm a multicultural garden. You have really covered the 3 corners of Europe there, haven't you? Croatia, France, and Swiss. Excellent stuff. Excellent. Turbo Stream says, I normally use a capillary mat in my trays and water from the bottom. I'm with you on that as well. I use the capillary mat quite often as well. Again, one of the things I'm going to be doing, you'll hear more about this over on the next live stream as such, where I'm going to be building my greenhouse out to be a bit more like able to do that sort of thing. Stu Jackson says a bulk bag of compost from the North Wiltshire supply is just over £100 per tonne, which is too pricey for me all in one go. Yeah, now I agree. This is what's always popped me off. But then when you work it out, so as I said, with the bags of compost I was buying from the range, I was trying to buy a set of 4 each month for a tenner. But if you did that over 9 months, you've then got 100, or 10 months, you've then got the £100. You've then got the £100. So what I'm going to try and do is, this is my idea. I'm going to find the money to pay it out in one go, but then over the next year, put £10 a month aside in a bank account for all that compost. However, Hargrave has just done the maths. There's 1,000 litres in a cubic metre, so that's 20 times 50-litre bags. So the 40-litre bags, 4 of those, 40, 80, 160. So that does work out cheaper. That does work out much cheap, more or less the same, more or close enough. Give or take. Yeah, give or take, it's more or less the same, but it's better to have it to hand, isn't it? Tebistrom says, I still think for certain seeds that the direct sown in a seed bed works well. Leeks that take a long time till they are ready seem to suit this way. The seed bed idea has, I've been taking it on this year, and that's worked quite well. Certainly less wastage, isn't there? But yeah, the seed bed definitely a good idea. Digwell is said, I see what you mean. I bought it from a local private nursery, talking about the compost. Yeah, when they're getting ready to get rid of it. Where were we? The range stuff is cheaper than most composts, though. It is. It's the cheapest stuff I've found, and it actually so far has done pretty good. In fact, I actually saw it being sold in a garden centre recently as well at the same sort of price. So there's definitely something in it. Right, talking of seed sowing, let's go to a video. Let's do this week's Grow Along. Right guys, it's time for this week's sow along, and this week we are sowing chili seeds. Now, some people might think it's a bit of an odd time to sow chili seeds, but actually it is a great time. Reason being is that chili, I find, needs a long growing period. If we sow it now, keep it somewhere warm over winter, we end up with an early harvest of chili seeds next year. So let's sow them and get them going. Now, quite simply, take the seeds. Nothing hard about these really, is there? Put them into our hands. Some of you might recognise these bags. These were ones that I sent out last year in the Seed Supporters Cup. And we're trying to give them about 2 centimetres of space between each seed in order to get them enough space to grow and germinate and make it easy when it comes to pricking them out as well. Now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds in there. We're just going to cover these over a bit of seed compost as well. Then we'll give them a good watering, and we'll keep these in the greenhouse for them to germinate. At this time of year, it's still quite warm, so we're not going to necessarily need any extra heating to get them to germinate, but they do benefit from a bit of extra heating from time to time. Especially if you're sowing them in January, but we're doing these, as said, end of August, like so. There we go, good covering. A few more seeds just there. Give it a good covering, and then of course plot the label in which I've already said what is going on here. We're just going to tap these down, then that should be good to go. Now, if you ask me, chili seeds are really easy to look after. We wait for them to germinate, then we'll prick them out into bigger pots. because we are going to be growing these over winter, they will need to come inside the house as probably by about October in order to maintain some of that heat. These are from the tropics. I do know some people have grown them outside over winter and they have survived in a warm, sunny courtyard, but I think indoors would just guarantee that they will do okay. Heated greenhouse, of course, is the other thing that we could use. Anyway, we'll keep them growing. We'll put them up as they get bigger and bigger. By about March, I'll probably move them back out into my greenhouse, which is unheated. And then from sort of May onwards, they can then go outside and hopefully go on and provide us with some good chilies. I love chilies, one of my favourite things to grow. I love a bit of heat. Don't always have to be about heat, it is sometimes about the flavour. So give it a go and let us know how you get on. Back to the studio. So indeed, that is the chili seeds, for this week's Grow Along. The variety I've sown is Roxy. Give it a try. As I said, I always like to sow chili seeds around this time, maybe even into, well, every month between now and March. I find chilies do need that long growing season. So growing them indoors, getting them started just seems to help get them going. Now at that point, let's have a look at the comments. So Lisa is saying, I worry that if I buy compost in bulk, that when it arrives, the compost will be awful like a lot of the other composts I bought this year. Good point. Then you're stuck with a lot of compost that you, excuse me again, stuck with a lot of compost that you don't know what to do. Good point. That's a very good point. I hadn't quite thought of, but it does save some money, doesn't it, buying it in bulk? If you can store it is always the big problem. The nursery does not have to stop using peat until 2023. Wink, wink. Yeah, indeed. Idaho Garden Girls, hello everybody. Sorry I'm late. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. Ballycillian is saying, I find a seed bed gets murdered by slugs. I prefer modules on a floating shelf in the polytunnel to get plants growing. Yeah, I tried the seed bed this year. It's more of a seed container if you've seen it, because it just seemed to work quite well. It did work quite well, actually. It was easier and didn't waste so much compost, which was the main idea. I think I'll try it again. I think I will keep trying with it, but I still like doing them in seed trays as well, especially with the plans that I've got coming up for next year. Scott says, haven't thought about overwintering chilies. Do they get leggy with a lack of light, or do they slow down during the winter? So it's a good question, actually. That very question. So I've overwintered chilies for quite a number of years. I have known somebody to actually leave chilies outside in a courtyard, so quite a heat retaining area, and they've survived without any additional heat. But can they get leggy? They can do a little if there is a lack of light, but if they are on a sunny windowsill, they do seem to do okay. Or you can supplement them with some grow lights just to stop them getting a little bit leggy. Like I say, chilies, I find a bit like aubergines as well. They need a very long growing season in order to actually produce a decent amount of fruit. So start them early, keep them warm, and they do seem to do a bit better. If you are worried about them getting leggy, you can't give them grow lights. Place a bit of tinfoil behind them to reflect the light all the way around. Does seem to work as well. Turbo Stream says, another change for next year is not to mulch with uncomposted leaves. Too many dock seedlings came up this year. We'll stop top dress with the composted. We'll still top dress with the composted leaves in the winter, though. Well, you've got that good supply of good supply of leaves at your allotment, so it's well worth trying to use that as much as you possibly can. Again, it's just a covering, isn't it? You can always, as a mulch, don't forget, you can always, if you need, or if it hasn't composted down, you can always lift it back up and remove it. Stuart says, I think I may follow your lead with chili seeds as I can put them upstairs over winter. Yeah, I've got so many chili seeds. I will be sending some out in October for Supporters Club. I think it will be. So yeah, plenty of time. But as I said, get some going now, and they will be surprising just the difference that you can make with those. This is asking, does this work for sweet peppers as well as chili seeds? Yes, it does. They're basically the same. It's just some are hot and some are sweet. Again, I find sweet peppers need that long growing season. So getting them started, I started them in December before, to be honest with you. As I said, they do need that bit of heat to get them through the winter. So if you cannot supply the heat, don't worry about it. But they do need a bit of heat just to get them through the winter. Off subject, but just a quick question. We have 1 meter squared raised bed at school, 30 centimeters high. How much compost per bed will I need? So that would be like, so if 1 square meter is 1,000 liters, that 1 square meter would do about 3 of those beds, according to my quick sums, 3 and a bit. So 300 liters. That's roughly what I've worked out. I could be wrong, but that's my quick sums. If anybody has any thoughts on that, let us know. Turbo Soon says, my seabed was made with wooden sides from a pallet and a veggie mesh top. The slugs tended not to be a problem so far, especially with the leaks. Slugs and snails have been a real problem this year for many of us, haven't they? I'm glad the hedgehogs are back. I'm actually feeding the hedgehogs. But slugs and snails, really bad problem because it's been so wet this year. Idaho says, these chilies you've grown inside, when do you put them outside? So I will put them in my greenhouse in March, in my unheated greenhouse. And then they will go outside towards the end of May, once the risk of frost has passed. As I said, it's all about getting that long growing season, I find, with those that they really do need. Nigel, Money Boots Allotment has joined. Evening or late again, taking advantage of the dry spell. I don't blame you. It's nice to get a bit of dry, sunny weather, isn't it? And it's a bank holiday tomorrow, isn't it? An extra day off. Scott says, brilliant. I will be giving the chilies a go over the winter. I have some lights. Let us know how you get on. I will be doing quite a few as well. Digwell, 300 litres, like I had worked out. Yeah, 300 litres. There we go. That's how much compost for a 1 metre square but 30 centimetre high bed. 300 litres. Isn't it great when we can work these things out on the fly? Turbo Stream says 200 tons, LOL, as a joke. Now, coming back to our plans, or when do we start planning for next year? It's not unusual for me during sort of November, December, when it's dark and grey outside, I can't do anything outside, to be sat on the kitchen table and go through my seed boxes. And I have to try and go through them and work out what seeds we actually have, what seeds we want to get rid of, what seeds we desperately need to sow. And that tends to work out what my sowing plan is for the following year. So again, this falls into the planning side of things. And trust me, I've got so many seeds that they are just building and building and building up. A bit like plant pots, I swear these seeds tend to breed. But what we're going to do, we're going to have a good sort out of all these seeds. We're going to get rid of the old seeds. I know they'd probably be okay, but we're going to get rid of all the old seeds. It'll be around October, November time. It will take me a very long time to go through it, trust me. My wife will not be happy with me at all because I take over the kitchen table and the worktops in order to do this. But you get the idea. Going through the seeds in November, December time, then writing out what we have and what we can continue to use for the following year, and then work out a sowing plan. So it's more in December. I'm not very good, as you know, with using what they call spreadsheets on the computer. So I'm a pen and paper type guy. I'll take notes and work things out. And I'll write, what I'm going to do is write down each month and what I want to sow that very month. And then when it comes to that month, I can tick them off. Turbo Stream has got a comment there. I will sort my seeds on a cold, wet, dry, drenched day in front of my log burner with a massive mug of coffee. Absolutely, yeah. It's a good chance to go through them, isn't it? When it's cold and wet outside, get somewhere nice and warm, nice cup of coffee. I usually end up with a bad back afterwards because I'm leaning over the kitchen table in order to try and sort them out. But it's worth doing. I know I say that I try and get rid of the seeds that are out of date, and some people will say that's not necessary. I think it is necessary, just purely because I end up with so many seeds. Talking of seeds, I meant to ask, what seeds do you want me to sow next week? As I said, I'm not going to be able to do a live show next Sunday, but I'm going to do a pre-recorded video. Go out at 6 p.m. Same sort of thing as this. Same, but so I can do a cutaway of the what do you call it? the sow along video. What seeds do you want me to sow next week? Get your thinking cap on. I've also got a new feature that I want to add, and this is another video that we'll get into in that. Let's do this now. Actually, last week I mentioned this. I was sent some super soil from Digwell, and this week you challenged me to set it up. So let's have a look at that. Right guys, a new feature I thought I'll add on this live stream is a feature called Challenge Richard. This is your chance for each week to try and challenge me to a certain task or something I can do in the garden. I can make a quick video and see if I complete the challenge. So get thinking for your next one. Now what we got this week is this stuff that came from Digwell Green Fingers, Super Soil it's called, and it's meant to be a way of adding, as I understand it, good microbes to soil systems. So we want to really see how well it gets on. So what I've done, I've got a spray bottle here. This is a 2 litre spray bottle, and we're going to add some of this stuff to it. Now we are advised, as Digwell said to me, when we open it up, be careful because it is really fine dust and can make a bit of a mess. And I can see what he means. So if I just show you to the camera, that it's really fine in there. It's almost like a black powder. So there we go. It almost looks like charcoal. So for 2 litres we want about 2 grams, which I've worked out, guessing that's about 2 grams. I could be wrong, but we'll go with it. And what we'll do, we'll place this back on. And give it a good mix. So it's made the water quite black. There we go. So what we're going to do now is sow some lettuce. So here we have 2 containers into which we want to sow some of these lettuce. So there's the seeds, scatter them over this one. We're going to try and get about the same amount of seeds, maybe a few too many in that, into this one. Let's add a few more actually, because I think that one's got a bit extra. And let's do this. There we go. So 2 of these containers are sown with the seeds, lettuce seeds that is, because it's going to be quick. What we now want to do is just see how it affects, well, this super soil affects each container. So we're going to put that one to the side, and we just spray this stuff on. I don't know how liberal we do it, but we'll give it a good try. That's probably enough. And we'll give it a try and just see how it works out in the end. So I want to thank you very much, Digwell Green Fingers, for sending me the super soil stuff. I'm looking forward to see what a difference it makes. Could have swept up before I did that, couldn't I? Testing out a new microphone as well, but you get the idea. As I said, I want a challenge like that each week. So if anybody's got a challenge they would like me to do for next week, it needs to be a quick one because I can only really shoot it tomorrow. But if you've got one, that would be great. Right. So Digwell says, my sewing plan is the same year on year. Thank you spreadsheet. A few amendments for what went wrong, but I'm ignoring the last 2 years as they have been abnormal, being polite. Every year's abnormal, isn't it, at the moment? I think it's just, I personally think it's best to work looking at nature, although the rain this year, crazy. I do exactly, says Lisa, I do exactly what you do in the winter. First, I sort out my seeds to see what I have, throw away old ones. Then I have a spreadsheet which I update with new varieties or types of veg I want to try and what month I need to sow them. Yeah, I mean, to me, I try and be organised. I sometimes try too hard to be too organised, but going through what we've got and what we have is always a good idea, I think. Turbo Stream says Dresh. I've got to look at that screen. Dresh is the Scottish word for miserable weather. Yeah, we've had a lot of it this year, haven't we? Barley Cillian says, can you sow a load of out-of-date seeds over winter for microgreens? Yes, you can actually. And I quite often do that with seeds that the old cabbage seeds or basil seeds, herb seeds. Just obviously, as long as the foliage is edible, then you should be able to use it as microgreens. So don't do anything like tomatoes as a microgreen. I don't think that's going to work. Scott says, I like scrapbooks, but I'm no good at spreadsheets. But a scrapbook with sewing dates and pictures that you can look back on, I find helps with planning. It's a good idea. Scrapbook, very good idea. I haven't done a scrapbook in years. I'm not sure what that is. Kate says, I challenge Richard to weed my allotment. I can't do that I can't do that tomorrow. That's the only thing for this week. I can only do it tomorrow because of time. Nicola says, hey, so sorry I'm late. Been sorting out my dad who has had to go back into hospital this morning, meaning I'm still in Sussex, so still the line into every cloud. Hope you're okay, Nicola, and hope your dad is okay. Very sorry to hear that. Kate says, it is a fun idea, like great to see how things we aren't sure is done. Great idea. There you go. There you go. This is what I want to see. The thinking of it. Stuart says, an idea for a video, how to mix your own compost for sowing or potting on plants. That's an idea. That's compost mixes. That's a good idea. Yep, I can certainly do a video for that, or a challenge for that. Ballycillian says, my first year trialing super soil and it was a big success. Yeah, I'm interested to find out about this. As I understand it, it's about putting good microbes into the soil. And I was chatting to a friend of mine who works at Empathy, and it's something they are looking into at the moment, or maybe even promoting. So there's something to think about this. And if it does work, which I think it will, then got to try and use it. The only downside, of course, is that the stuff is quite expensive, but I think once it's in there, that's it. It's good. Is this where we find out Digwell is the CEO of Super Soil? Yeah, potentially. Stuart says, my sowing plan for next year will be new. It will depend on how building the new beds go. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, again, this is where getting those beds built during the winter, I think anyway, getting the beds built during the winter just frees that up for that the sowing can be done a lot quicker in my idea. Digwell does say he has samples available for the postage fee only. If anybody is interested, then email Digwell. I think it's supersoil at digwellgreenfingers.co.uk, if I remember correctly. Let us know. Toby String says, another thing I need to plan for next year is to feed the plants more. I'm guilty of planting them and just watering. So this is actually, Toby String, this is a good question. I've heard a lot of people now say, following a certain somebody's advice, that you don't necessarily need to feed the soil so much because you're adding compost and using it as a mulch, which is adding nutrients to the soil, and therefore adding the nutrients to your plants. So if you're adding compost, you may not necessarily need to feed your plants. But I'm still of the mindset that I need to feed my plants. And what I try to do, this might help anybody out there, is I do it on a Friday, feeding Friday, as I call it, which Rebecca, it was her idea. Just makes it easy to remember. That's the day to feed your plants. Hope that helps. Vinny says, I agree with Super Soil, works 100%. I'm looking forward to finding it out, to be honest with you. Very, very excited to see how well it works because it seems to have a lot of people, or a lot of buzz going around it. Digwell says it is expensive. £45 treats 1 acre. Your 2 litre mix will treat 80 square meters. Oh, so you don't, I probably sprayed a bit too much onto that stuff. I probably sprayed a bit too much onto it then, didn't I? Because 80 square meters will do quite a large area. I can't work it out at the moment. Money Boots has also said, had great crop harvests, added super soil quite late in this season. When's the right time to add it then? Good time to ask Digwell the questions on this. When is the best time to add super soil to the beds, or is there a best time? Digwell, Nicholas says, Digwell, I'd love some, please. We'll email you. Can we do a bank transfer or PayPal gift payment? Digwell, can you put your email address and I'll put it on the screen for everyone, just in case I've got it wrong. Scott says, weeding Wednesday, although with my plots, it's weeding every minute of every day. Yeah, weeding, I think, should be done on a daily basis anyway, because it just works at keeping it in control. But weeding Wednesdays are a good one. Could be just Wednesday's a day you dedicate to weeding. No other task but weeding. Digwell says you cannot overdose super soil, but if you bought it, then you are just wasting your money. Okay. That's good to know. Then he goes on to say, can be applied at any time of the year. The sooner the better. Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, it's just about adding good microbes to the soil. So all good. Bally Cillian says, the beds I use super soil in, I use no fertilizer or feed on the plants and they outgrew the normal beds. So the price offset by saving on fertilizer. Interesting. It's very interesting. So now we've set up this challenge and we're going to see how well they get on. It should make it all the more fun, or be interesting to see what it does. Muddy Boots, the super soil says you can't overfeed. I will treat next year just before planting out. Yeah. I mean, I'm really intrigued and interested with this stuff. It's there's certainly a buzz about it, isn't there? Once the package is opened, does it degrade? Good question. Good question there. And Turbo Stream says, my mulch is mainly leaf mold with not many nutrients. The main growing bed will get the bulk of the compost I make. That's the trouble with leaf mold. It doesn't have many nutrients, doesn't it? So if that makes up the bulk of your compost, it's not great when you think about it like that. I hadn't quite thought of it like that. But if you're making compost anyway, then all good. I was saying I've got to try and get some not chicken manure, horse manure on the allotment at some point, in order to try and boost my compost bins up. Not great. No shelf life, he says. So there we go. Now, Lisa is saying, I have no dig beds, but my homemade compost just doesn't cover my whole plot. And I normally have to buy in green waste compost to mulch, which costs quite a bit. So this year, I just added my compost to potato and brassica beds and used BFB on others, and it worked great. What's BFB? Well, what's BFB? But I'm with you with the trouble with no dig and trying to produce enough compost. This is a challenge I talk about quite often. Trying to make enough of our own homemade compost to fill our beds, use as a mulch, and really sort of not have to buy any compost in is a challenge. And this is one of the things that I'm planning to try and do next year. To really get it figured. BFB was blood, fish, and bones. So thank you for that. And all I can think that what I'm doing on the allotment is obviously I'm trying to compost absolutely everything that can possibly compost it, and I can only think by adding more and more bins or bigger bins that I can compost more and more. And then I'm going to try and get some horse manure in to try and add more bulk to it. Same at home as well. More composting, more stuff to add to it. Easier said than done sometimes, isn't it? All right, so more questions about the super soil. Once you use it on the plot, do you have to retreat with it next year, or is it a one and done thing? And Digra does actually answer that, says it's a one-time treatment but can be reapplied to no ill effect. Very, very interesting, isn't it? Turbo Stream says, I have plenty of pelleted chicken manure, though, which I sprinkle about when I remember. I always add a few in a hole with blood, fish, and bone, too. Yeah, chicken manure pellets are, I think, one of the must-haves. I try and use those a lot. Again, this is where I'm unsure that I can get away without adding fertilizers. I think even though I do know dig gardening, I still feel I need to add feeds and fertilizers. Yes, we can get there. Idaho says it sounds like super soil can change agriculture worldwide. Who knows? Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see just how well it works out. As I said, we know it's quite expensive, but if it works out well, then all well and good. It's going to be fun to find out, isn't it? And see the difference. Stu Jackson says, I want to learn about natural fertilizers so that I can teach the children which one is best to use. So I will be doing lots of research over the next few weeks. Any ideas, I will be grateful. Thanks. That might be something we discuss, natural fertilizers, in a couple of weeks, actually, then, or at some point. But natural fertilizers, yeah, comfrey is one that springs to mind, but something we could possibly discuss at a later date. Margaret says, you may already know this, but Sam, who's Margaret's son, my stepbrother, says that broad beans treat the soil where they grow. He says whatever he plants in the broad bean bed just grows so much better the next year. Well, that's the same with many of the legume families. They add nitrogen to the soil um, if you leave the roots in the soil. Although some people will say, I'm no scientist, so I'm not going to get into it, but I know some people say if they've flowered, then they don't do the nitrogen, or if the plants use the nitrogen up, it doesn't happen. I don't know. But part of the reason that we grow legumes and field beans are for that very reason. They're adding nitrogen to the soil, which improves the growth for next year. Dig Wells says the mission is to prove the world's poor soils and reverse the damage done by chemicals, e.g., Midwest USA. Talking about super soils. So it's interesting, isn't it? We're trying to add all these bits, trying to improve our soils all the time with compost, super soil, and what have you. Oh, excuse me. Anna Jones says you can't beat seaweed for a natural fertilizer. I do like seaweed, actually. If you can get hold of it, I tend to use seaweed as a mulch, especially on my asparagus bed. Now, if it is washed up, we can't go picking seaweed, but if it's been washed up on the beach, then it's fine to use. I always try and get the stuff above high tide and make sure there's no creepy crawlies in it so that they can make their own way back to sea. But I'm lucky I live on the coast, so we get plenty of seaweed here. Right, shall we have a look at the photos that you guys have been sending in this week? A little bit quiet on the photo front this week, but please do keep sending them in. Now, Scott has got this wonderful bouquet of veg. I can see there's beetroot, courgettes, fennel, beetroot leaves, Swiss chard leaves, tomatoes. Is it kale, cabbage, beans? Just a huge cacophony of great harvests. Absolutely fantastic and great to see. And I just love all the colours in this as well. Next, now this was Kate Spratt. She was asking about when is the best time to harvest cauliflower, or how do you know when cauliflower is ready? It's a very tricky one when it comes to cauliflower, because if you leave it too late, it blows over. But if you leave it too long, it doesn't quite, or too early, sorry, doesn't quite reach its full potential. So I put it down to experience. I look at it, and when it's nice and tight, so at the moment I would say that's not ready, but in a few days that would be ready, I reckon. Just keeping an eye on it and making sure you get it just right. Now, Andy, he's carried out a poll on another allotment group about what is the best thing to use on your pathways. And grass came out on top, closely followed by bark. So, interesting survey. I'm a big fan of using grass just because then I can cut the grass and use it for compost material and mulching. So I got distracted there, and I shouldn't do that. Now, Suzanne is after ways to preserve her chilies, and this is a good lot of chilies there. They look fantastic, don't they? Good ways to dry them, pickle them, keep them in oil is just some of the ways that have been suggested. Frozen as well is a good one. In fact, frozen, you can use them as almost on a grater, as suggested by Scott, I think it was. So lots of different ideas of how to preserve the chilies. Now, this is the last one. Liz was showing how well her seed tapes have worked in her beds. As you can see, if you look into the beds, there's some nice straight lines of what could be carrots and what have you. So good use of seed tapes. Again, I can't remember who was asking about the seed tapes, but good idea if you can get the seed tapes. They're good for a good number of reasons. So keep sharing those photos, guys. Post them in our Facebook group. Send to me via social media, or you can send to me by email, richard@theveggrowpodcast.co.uk. Always do love looking at these photos that are sent in. We're always happy to see them as well. There we go. That's the photos for this week. Where were we? Where were we? So Hargrave Gas says, I add mycorrhizal fungi powder when I'm potting things on, planting out. That seems to help. Mycorrhizal fungi, yes, it's a fungi. I've got some of it somewhere. Um, it creates like a network between all the plants, and they use it for communication, as I understand it. But definitely a good one to use as well. I think the guys. I think it'll come eventually that there will be a mixture of mycorrhizal fungi and this microbes as well in one shot, basically. Um, but yeah, mycorrhizal fungi. I should add some of that to our soils. Turbo Stream says, my mission is to continue to improve my soil. There are sections which have improved since I took on the plot, and the soil seems so much better on that bit. I always find that amazing. Actually, I was looking on my allotment earlier today, funny enough, and there was the two newer beds. Things aren't growing great in those. Now, I haven't added compost, and I think they were just a pathway before that. Compared to the rest, they're not growing at all well. And I put that down to the fact that I haven't added in compost, I haven't improved that soil yet. Kate says it wasn't her cauliflower. Sorry, I think it should have been. It was some Kate Harding, Chili Kate. Then sorry, um, I didn't write any notes down. I just knew it was a Kate. Yeah, it was a cauliflower. When is the right time to harvest it? Oh, lots going on, isn't there? But I do love seeing those photos. Please do keep sharing them and share and see how we get on. Hargrave Guess, I brought my ticket for Sunday at Audley End. Never been before. Do you know where you are taking part, Richard? I think my ticket says opens at 10 a.m., which is when I thought you were on. So yeah, I was told I'm on stage at 10 a.m. on the Let's Grow stage, but if you look on the website, it says 10:20. My name's not actually on that bit, but I'm on under the plant experts. Yeah, I'm not going to criticize first chance. I think it opens at 9. I have to have a look. I thought it opens at 9 a.m. Either way, it be the Let's Grow stage where the show gardens are is probably the best way to say it. I will email you if I know, if I can find out a bit more, of course. But yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to that next Sunday. What have we got here? Stuart Jackson, sorry, I forgot the photos this week, but harvesting tomatoes, lettuce, carrots, and potatoes the last few days, plus apples. Excellent stuff. Somebody stole all my apples, though. I'm not happy because all my apples have gone. Turbo Stream says, I have had good results with chicken manure in the hole and bloodfish and bone in the infill, especially with cauliflower and brassicas. Fantastic. I'm now learning what BFB means. I sent Balicilian Allotment Man seed list. Did you get it? No, I don't think I did. Don't think I did. Where did you send it? And I'll double check. Toby Stream says, I have a few photos for the veg show to send in. We'll send next week so you can sort them after your trip. Yes, please. I meant to say about that. We have got a few entrants for the Alternative Veg Grower Show. I'll add the link if you want to find out more about it. Click on the link that is going up in the comments and it will take you to our blog post, our blog page, where you can find out more about the Alternative Veg Grower Show. I've got a few entrants, but I really do need quite a few more. Just need photos, so please do send some in. It is just for fun, of course, but if we can make it a success next year, we might look at doing some prizes. I think the last date was, or the last date to get your entry was the 4th of September. But at this rate, I think I might extend that because we don't have enough. Or is it? Or if we got a couple of weeks, I can't remember now. I can't remember. Scott says, I got a 10 a.m. ticket. Wasn't much left when I booked, but I'm there on Sunday and looking forward to it. Please do head over to the Let's Grow stage and make yourself known. I probably won't recognize you, so you have to tell me who you are. It always happens at these shows, people recognize me. But yeah, please do let me know if you are there at Audley End House next Sunday. And we'll have a bit of a chat and a meet up or something. Nigel says the best soil improver I did was to double dig cow manure deep into the begs. That was almost 10 years ago, and they're still retaining moisture very well. Are you on a clay soil or a loamy soil, Nigel? I've never really taken much notice of that, to be honest. But cow manure, I keep thinking perhaps I should get cow manure instead of horse manure into my compost. What have we got next? Idaho says, that's an awesome opportunity, Richard. If I lived over there, I would come and see you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing this stage talk. First one I've ever done. No, I did sing at a charity event, but first one I've done for the BBC. I'll put it like that. A lot of fun, though. It's going to be a lot of fun, I hope. Nicolette says, I've been having to do runs that are rat proof for hens as they have taken 3 of my chicks. I still have 5. Yeah, rats are big problems. Why I do like the igloo chicken runs, although they don't seem to stop the bird pecking through, as I lost a chicken last week. But yeah, I hear you on that front. Somebody stole my apricots and nectarines off my tree. It's annoying, isn't it? I had really nice apples. I also had quite a few more pears. We've still got pears, but all my apples have been taken. I'm really not happy about it. You'll hear more on the podcast tomorrow about that because I was looking forward to those apples. They're always so tasty and juicy. This is one of the downsides of an allotment. A plot holder near me has had a gooseberry bush stripped off its fruits, not birds. I know. It's annoying, isn't it? Absolutely annoying when this happens. Because I was looking forward to these apples and gooseberries and what have you, so I know what you mean. Bizarrely, someone was pinching water from my water butts. A few planks of wood on top seems to have popped them off because they know, hey, you're onto them. That's why. Pinching water from the water butt. Why? Weird. Instagram, but it's more than likely my end. Will we send for 2 weeks' time? I will double check on Instagram just in case it's gone into the spam, but I don't think it would. You should be in the correct list. Idaho says, P.S. I'm tired of the thievery. I might be moving. I'm going to discuss this on tomorrow's podcast, but people are giving up their allotment because of a theft that goes on. It's the bad side of allotment. Hargrave says, the weather stole my apples, I think. Got very few to look forward to. I've got absolutely none. They've all gone. There was loads of them as well. Really nice, big, red, juicy apples. At this point, I better just remind everybody, if you're enjoying this show, please do give us a like. Please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a follow. Please do give us a subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification so that you know when we go live. Stuart Jackson says, I've also been catching up with sowing the Supporters Club seeds this week. Yeah, excellent. Next batch goes out on Thursday, which is another good load to share with you. Nigel says, clay loam soil, far less weeds and cow manure. Perhaps cow manure is going to be the better way. Where can I get cow manure from that can be delivered quite cheap is the next question. Margaret, do you know anywhere? I'm going to throw that out there. There's a reason I'm asking her, and she'll probably come up with something. Stuart says, I hope you will set up a video camera next Sunday for the ones that can't make it. By the way, good luck. I will be recording it for the podcast, the audio anyway, for the podcast. So if you can't make it, you will hear my talk on the podcast. Well, Kate says, sorry to hear that, Idaho. It's awful people taking without asking. All my pears went last year. I would happily give folks if they asked. but just taking is not on. Absolutely. I knew somebody on my allotment site who was growing a really big watermelon and it got taken. Got completely taken. Belly Sinian says, plenty of time left, folks. Don't forget to hit the like button and if not, subscribe. Oh, God. Hiccup as well. Trapped air. Hargrave says, I hate the fact that we have rats, but they seem to live alongside our chickens without harming them. Maybe they get too much food without having to fight for it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we get rats here. We've got hedgehogs. We don't get rats here, thankfully, but I've set my thing up to be pretty rat proof for that very, very reason. So Digwell's gone on super soil at digwellgreenfingers.co.uk for super soil samples. Only need £1.25 to cover postage and packaging. He's just headed over there for bless him. Like, subscribe, and share, and send lots of money. Yeah. Nigel says, put some weed killer in the water butt and then look for a dead plants in a few weeks' time. That's nasty, but I like the thinking. I do like the thinking. Hargrave says cow manure is better than horse manure as their multiple stomachs kill off more pesticides and seeds through extra digestion. So why do we use horse manure more then? Or why is it because it's easier or more easier available? If I can get cow manure, I'm going to use it. A cow is the best place to get cow manure from. That's not what I was meaning. Where can I get it delivered to my allotment? Is what I meant. I've got to find someone that supplies it. Nigel, I use it as a toilet. I'm talking about the thingamabob. Digwell's getting personal with Nigel now, saying you are talking about the horse manure. Nicholas says, my rats dig under runs, so wiring a bottom. Oh, rats are evil things, aren't they, when they get in? A dog is the best way to get rid of rats, sorry, I think. Probably a cat, actually, might be even better. Idaho, I figured out they come with a tarp. Lay it down, pick it as fast as possible, then gather the tarp and the fruit that fall and leave. There's not a shred of fruit left, no half-eaten, all are completely gone. They are very organised and professional, very experienced, talking about the people stealing the fruit. It's annoying, isn't it? It is absolutely annoying. Set up a camera is my only thought, a wildlife camera, and try and catch them in the act. Kate says a pack of manure is brilliant. You can put it straight on instead of making it well rotted. Again, yeah, I could do with some of that. If I can just get hold of it. Timer Stream saying, Idaho, I thought you grow on your home garden. That's rough if they pinch your fruit. Come into a home garden and pinch it. Trust me, I see it happen. It's awful, isn't it? Horse manure is more readily available as it needs to be cleared up from stable yards. Cows usually randomly crap in the fields. But don't they get horse manure when they are bedded down? But isn't that where they scoop it up from as opposed to get it from the field? Same as horse manure and cow manure. It's more what's found in the beds in the stables or where they stay at night as opposed to what's in the ground. I know it's like the chickens, they tend to do more pooping at night. They do a bit during the day, but they tend to do more during the night, which is why their manure is easy to get hold of. I used horse manure once, never again. Best ever crop of grass. Yeah. Idaho says, yes, Tabby Stream, they must climb my fence. Little gits is all I can say on that. Horse manure is not used so much to spread on fields, but there you go. This is why I think we need cow manure. Margaret says, I can ask about the cow manure. I can't think of anywhere except Sam's place. I will get back to you. Please do, Margaret, because I could do with some if Sam doesn't need it. I need to get a trailer on my van now at some point to do this. We can order manure, but need to order a ton at a time. Yeah, this is what I thought. It's difficult, isn't it, to try and get it. Nicholas says, I have 4 cats, but they still give me the chicken run. Talking for the rats, that is. Here we go. Nicholas says, the stolen fruit and veg must be other plot holders on the whole, as many allotments have key access only. Not always, allotments are not the most secure places at the best of times. So our allotment, it does have keys and locks, but it's pretty easy in places to jump over the fence and get in. So that's sometimes how people are getting in and stealing food. And it's not unheard of. I mean, some people are generally struggling to feed themselves, so they are trying all the time to get food, and they're too proud to ask in some cases, which I think is wrong. But if they asked, they could probably have some of it. There was a case many years ago where a bloke was caught stealing food from an allotment, and when he was in court, the entire thing that he came up with is that he couldn't. It was during the recession, I think. The entire reasoning was that he couldn't afford to feed his family, but he had he asked, people would have given him the food. So stealing is not the way at all. Nigel says, horse manure in the summer months are from the field. During the winter months, I come from the stable. I always check if hay or straw has been used. Hay will seed really and germinate in the beds. I'm hoping to rot it down a little bit more, but yeah, if I can get cow manure, I'll be very, very happy. Or Digwell says, kangaroo poo is good if you can catch it. We do have wallabies up the road from us. They're kind of close to kangaroos, but wallabies up the road at Leonardsley. Probably get some from there. You used to be able to buy lion manure as well, didn't you? And the wild cats manure from zoos many years ago. I don't think they do it anymore. They're banned for some reason. But yeah. Well, guys, we've got 2 minutes to go. So the seeds sow along for next week. What seeds should I sow next week? And what is going to be the challenge? I know Stuart said about doing some soil mixes, compost mixes. That would be a good idea. But in the last few minutes, just let me know, live. As I said, next week's won't be live. I'm going to do a pre-recorded. It'll still go out like a live, and it'll still be me having a conversation with you guys, so you can still sort of talk as we go along. That's the idea I've got. I won't be able to interact with you guys as much. I just don't like not. I've done this for several years. I've not missed a single Sunday. I want to keep that up. And it's the same with the podcast. I can always pre-record some in advance, so I'm going to try and do that. Nicola says there are many food banks now that have so much surplus food that would go in landfill with no proof of benefits. We've got a food, well, it's called a fridge. It basically stops food from going to landfill. So my wife goes down there quite often and gets that. So yeah, no reason really to steal food in some ways. Turbo Stream, thankfully so far my produce hasn't been stolen apart from the blackcurrants, which I assumed was the birds. Lucky you. Lucky you. Idaho says it makes me feel slightly better to know that others are experiencing the same thing, but at the same time it's a terrible statement on the morals. Completely stripping trees is not casual picking. No, it's greed. Complete and utter greed. Belly Cillian says overwintering onion seeds. So we will do that because I can see Rebecca is also saying onion seeds for me, please. Definitely. definitely. Stuart says our local garden centre sells cow manure by the bag. That's good to know. Digwell says live manure was stopped due to the animal diet, pathogens, etc., like mad cow disease. Yeah, I thought it was something along those lines. Turbo Stream says another for onions. So there we go. We will do the onions. I'll be sowing those tomorrow for that. Nigel says, can you change the show to Monday next week? Then you can fill us in of how the event went. I could possibly pop on briefly on Monday. I can't because I've got to do the podcast on Monday still. And the other, because I'm away for 4 days, I need to spend a bit of time with the wife and the dog. But I will try and do something on the Monday then. Next Monday, I'll try and do something. I won't promise. I will try and do something to let you know. Probably be a bit later than usual, but I'll try and put a message up for everyone if that is what interests, if anybody is interested. Hargrave Gas, a lot of people saying onion seeds, so we're going to do that. Hargrave Gas, thanks for another great week's chat. Hopefully see some of you at Audley End. Yeah, looking forward. If you are there, please do make yourself known. Love to see some of you. However, meet up, have a chat, and see how things go. Right, guys, I am going to get out of here. I've still got so many things to do. I will be here on Sunday. Well, I won't be here, but I'll be a pre-recorded show for you guys anyway. And then I'll see about the Monday afterwards, just to fill you all in and keep you updated. Right, guys, you take care, and I will see you very, very soon. All the best.